In this video, I want to share with you the importance of having a large sample size. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how to get a proper assessment, a proper feel of the reality of a situation, and weigh the pros and cons to figure out if an actual decision you're going to make is actually logically worth it. Stay tuned. So you're not going to want to miss this. The basic idea is that you have to have a large enough sample size. And this is one of those concepts I think that just illustrates the importance of having foundational levels of understanding in numerous areas. Obviously, it's really great and probably more beneficial if you have very specialized knowledge and you go really deep in one field that you're known for. However, having at least a foundational knowledge on other areas, which can only take you about a week or maybe 2 weeks to learn. I mean, 90% of the foundational stuff in physics or statistics can be learned in about 2 weeks if you just put your mind to it. I learned that from someone else. That's not my idea, but it's true. And so what I'm trying to say here is that you have to have a large enough sample size. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you just get one person's opinion or 2 people or even 10 people, it can be a very skewed, opinionated, subjective result. For instance, you might, ask 10 people who live on the other side of the country, hey, is it easy or hard to get jobs there? And you could get a very skewed perspective based off just that small random sampling. Maybe those 10 people have a very negative mindset. Maybe these people, they're just very toxic, or they have a negative mindset and they make excuses for themselves, which is why they're down on themselves and they're not doing well. So they'll say stuff like, "Oh, it's horrible. It's very tough to get a job here. It's not very the competition is too stiff, and there's too much against me and all this stuff." Whereas if you had surveyed maybe 100 people, or if you chose 100 people who are doing well, they give you a completely different perspective because you have a larger sample size, so it kind of pushes away the noise. And on top of that, you have hand-selected the people who are successful, and they'll tell you something different. They'll say, hey, it's actually very easy to get a job here if you know the strategy behind it. I don't have any more skills or experience than those people complaining, but I did this, and this, and I had a positive attitude, and that's how I landed this incredible job. So I think a large enough sample size is incredibly valuable in everything. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't hear about it from other people who understood the concept, and also if I didn't take a class in statistics and learn about this. And it goes really deep, and it's incredible how even a large sample size, and you would assume something like anything surveyed at least 1,000 people has to be accurate. Not necessarily. And that is where the danger comes in. So for instance, if you're trying to gauge the population of the world by a sample size of 1,000, you're going to get very skewed, opinionated, erroneous, wrong results based off those 1,000 people. Just based off that small sample size, you might assume that the world is full of horrific racist people, but perhaps you just sampled the wrong individuals when there's 6 billion people in the world. So those are just great examples of how sampling can be of incredible value if you understand sample size. And I think the point of this story is use sampling and increasing your sample size to better your chances of a realistic picture on things. You can apply this to numerous areas of your life. If you have trouble with dating, why don't you try asking more than one person on their opinion. For instance, on fashion advice can be very subjective when you just ask one person. How about 50 people who are really good at fashion? Let's say you have productivity issues. Asking 2 people may not be the right thing to do, even if they're very productive, because they have their own methods suited for their own personality. It may be better for you to find either people like you in personality or 50 people and look for the common trends. And honestly, this is one of those things that frustrates me a bit because, um, quite frankly, a lot of people make tons of very stupid mistakes because they don't understand foundational elements of other areas of study. For instance, there's a ton of people, and I can't tell you, there's people who are quite accomplished and they will mess up on the most fundamental things because they don't understand it. They may have made a decent amount of money, but they don't know a thing about sample size. So they're testing something really important, maybe not even that important, but they're wasting time testing it. For instance, there's a case where there's a few sampling issues, and apparently this man thought that it would be absolutely best if you simply sampled a small size of people. It didn't matter as long as you tested it. If you tested 50 people versus 50 people, whichever result won out, that's the winner. And he had this idea of that's how you tested, and I was literally just blown away because that's not how a proper statistical experiment is done, and your results mean nothing if you do it that way. And it frustrated me to no end because guess what? People can make a lot of money, and then they start, maybe their ego starts inflating, or they don't know any better, and they jump into other areas, or they're just doing stuff that really have no impact. You don't go about just testing things based off an arbitrary number. Your results are insignificant or insubstantial if you just choose an arbitrary number to sample your results on. Just because you chose 50 people and it sounds like a big number to you, and then you tested 50 people here, doesn't mean the results mean anything. That could be a very skewed result, especially if you're testing something that could be, open to the world. For instance, a lot of people love testing different colors and headlines and statements and intros for their website or their YouTube videos and so forth. And it's like, why are you wasting the time to split test this red color with this blue color and thinking your results are significant to any extent? So thus ends my little rant. And the point of this message is, again, there's incredible importance in at least learning foundational elements of other areas of study. And then the second thing is really just dialing in on what you know and what you're not good at, focusing in on what you're good at, and for the things you're not, you get guidance and help. And finally, the last thing, of course, is analyzing a proper sample size. Now, if you want to figure out how to figure out if it's a proper sample size, that would require you to study confidence interval, which is beyond this video. But of course, there's many videos and information online about confidence intervals. So check those out, and I'll see you in the next video.